Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Energy Realities podcast. I am Tammy Nemeth. I'm the host today, much to my chagrin. And we've got an extra special episode today. We have the amazing Tom Nelson as our special guest. We're going to be talking about the American withdrawal from various UN and international organizations, conventions, and treaties. And of course, there's a number of climate ones in there. So it should be a fantastic conversation. We have today with us also David Blackmon. David, how are you?
Oh, I'm just thrilled to be here. It's just another beautiful day in Texas, like all the rest of them are.
Awesome. And there's not some big storm that's freezing everything right now?
Even if there was, it'd be a beautiful day. But no, it's all lovely and cool, and I'm happy.
Great. We also have the amazing Irina Slav, who's in Bulgaria. Irina, how are you today?
I'm great, thank you. We got some of Northern Europe's weather, but none of it snow. So it's just cold and sunny and no snow. So I'm a bit offended by that.
Yeah, I mean, what's that? Is it discriminating against Bulgaria and not allowed to snow?
I know. You get all the snow.
I love it when it snows. It's so pretty and it's nice and quiet. Yeah.
Hey, can I jump in for a second? I just want to let everybody know my LinkedIn is not streaming for some reason. You can also find this stream on YouTube, on Stu's LinkedIn feed, on our social media accounts on X. So I'm sorry for the problem. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, that's unfortunate. And then we also have Stu Turley. Stu, today, are you in Abilene or are you in Oklahoma?
I'm in Abilene today. You gotta love Texas.
So we're overrepresented from Texas today. And then, of course, we have the incredible Tom Nelson, who's a host of the Tom Nelson podcast, who always has amazing guests on there. Hey, Tom, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. I'm sitting here in Minnesota, not far from Minneapolis, Minnesota, but life is good at this spot right now. That's good.
Okay. So there's no big SUVs coming into your neighborhood and honking and blocking traffic or anything?
Nothing. Yeah. Life as usual is going on still right here. So life is good.
I just want to give a plug to Tom's really great movie called Climate the Movie. The Cold Truth is fantastic and everyone should check it out. It's free on YouTube, I think. So,
yeah. They haven't removed it?
No, I think there's still about 100 copies of it are up, I think, all over social media. It's kind of everywhere. So I'm loving that.
So how do you aggregate or know how many people have watched it if it's so dispersed across different channels?
Yeah, you can't really tell. I just add up some numbers and you can't tell. And maybe the same person has watched it on multiple channels and everything, but we're very happy with how it did. And I give all the credit to Martin Durkin. He's fabulous. He's so knowledgeable, so good at what he does. So I'm really happy that he was able to do this.
Yeah, I love that movie. It was so good. You had incredible people on there talking about what their experiences are trying to do the science and just the sort of resistance, which then takes us to what we're talking about today, which is the United States pulling out of a number of actually climate related institutions and whatnot. There's a list of 66 different organizations, treaties, conventions. Some of the big ones that are related to climate are the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which was the Rio Agreement that was actually ratified by the American Senate under the auspices it would just be voluntary. So America's out of that. They're also not going to participate and fund the IPCC, which is interesting. There's some conflicting viewpoints on whether that's a good thing or not. Roger Pilkey Jr. on Substack was saying this is a bad idea. But yeah, so Tom, if we could just start with you, what's your view of the implications of American withdrawal from these things? for
Well, I
climate?
think it's fantastic news. I'm so happy. I think Pilkey Jr. is wrong. I think he's wrong on lots of things. And I don't know the details of what are these organizations and who's the head of them and what are they supposed to be doing. But the whole thing, in the big picture, the whole thing is a total crock. That's the important point. We can spend $50 trillion, have all these organizations. We could all go live in caves. All this stuff is going to make no measurable difference to the climate or weather ever. So the whole thing is a scam. And getting out of this scam is fantastic. And it's happening so much around the world. And I think a lot of countries are kind of following our lead, not all of them. But I'm keeping this long-running Twitter thread that I have started last April about how this whole scam is dying around the world. I'm just loving it. I'm just adding to it all the time. There's a huge difference right now than when we put out Climate the Movie even. Just in the last couple of years, there's been enormous, since the election of Trump in particular, the second time, the death of the climate scam. It's happening right in front of our eyes. This is what it looks like. And there's going to be people that hold out for a long time. Michael Mann's still going to be pushing this 20 years from now, if he's still alive. But most normal people are just going to stop talking about it. And that's what's happening in general, that they're not pushing it as much and it's dying.
Okay. So, David, what do you think? Would you agree with that? Or do you think that it'll be a bit of a slower death, especially since the EU and UK seem to be doubling down on it?
Well, the EU and the UK are doubling down on it. So is Canada. But, you can't stop physics. You can't stop the march of history. You can't stop reality. And they are standing athwart reality, yelling stop themselves. And reality isn't going to stop. Physics are a law. They're not recommendation. They're not suggestions. It's the laws of physics. These solutions that these people have proposed to displace fossil fuels don't work. They can't work because of physics. So, I mean, it's inevitable. And I agree with Tom. It's going to be faster rather than slower now. I think we saw during even the Biden years, there was a reaction, a negative reaction, and a lot of pushback began after they passed the IRA and enacted hundreds of billions of dollars of green subsidies, and the public took a step back and said, wait, what in the world are we doing here with all these windmills now all over the countryside? People are tired of seeing them. People are tired of seeing farmlands condemned to put these massive solar arrays in, and their land rights are being ignored by the state governments and the federal government, and not the feds anymore. But even in states like West Virginia, I interviewed a lady in West Virginia a few months ago whose land rights are being impinged upon in a very conservative state in order because IKEA wants to put an enormous solar array in next door to her. Okay.
Yeah.
This is crazy. And they're condemning thousands of acres of forest land, native forest land, to put in this damn solar array that's not going to do anybody any good. And it's madness. And more people catch on to it all the time. And more communities, as Robert Bryce has documented, continue to push back. It's a growing thing, and it's going to continue to grow because it's right. Governments cannot force people to ignore what's right. Ultimately, it takes a long time for the population to catch up and recognize what the government's doing wrong, but eventually they do. And hopefully in the United States, we're not going to end up like the UK, where it's kind of too late to reverse the process. I'm hoping that thanks to the election of President Trump, we've kind of nipped this thing in the bud before it becomes too big to fail. And it's going to fail. Once the subsidies are gone at the end of 2027, wind and solar are going to collapse in this country. So I'm very optimistic like Tom, and I think we're on a positive path here.
Irina, this comment mentions your recent Substack on aluminum and copper. So what do you think? Is this going to be a bit of a snowball effect for other countries? What do you think the position of the EU will be? Will they fill the gap, the funding gap that is being removed by the United States? What's your take on this?
I was just thinking how much money the EU actually has, because they have promised, well, they haven't committed firmly, but they have promised 800 billion to the Ukraine. They plan to spend another 800 billion on rearmament. And that's on top of all the current subsidies for the energy transition. Where's the money going to come from? Even so, I think the EU will be the last one to throw in the towel on the energy transition and the whole net zero story, because as David noted, they've gone too far. It's impossible to just drop it now. And yeah, with reference to that aluminium thing, and what you pointed out in an email, that the carbon border adjustment mechanism is going to hit aluminium imports and aluminium supply. They are creating problems and they are solving them in the worst possible way. It's not a solution. It's making everything even worse. Now they sealed that deal with Latin America, which is going to really hurt farming. So they will have to spend even more money on farming to keep some local food production.
Well, my understanding is they want
too thin, and
well, they want to extend the carbon border adjustment mechanism to agriculture, agri-foods, everything. So this will be a great excuse.
That too.
Wow. Yeah. Stu, what's your take on these changes?
Go ahead, Irina.
No. They are going to die before they give up, basically.
Well, I think that
not physically.
I think the memorandum lists 66 entities for withdrawal, 35 non-UN organizations, and 31 related bodies. I wrote an article and I said this is a precursor to actually setting up the United States to have the UN move to Geneva. And I really think that is a precursor to total defunding. And then if you have them move out of the United States and still remain a member, this is also paralleling NATO and having France, the UK sending over ships to protect Greenland, and from the US. The US funds, I believe, 62% of NATO. We are NATO, so I think it's going to be pretty entertaining. But if you throw the UN out of the US, you defund the climate movement. This is also correlation into the funding of USAID and the USAID funds that have now been funded. This is also tied to the Minnesota funding that we're now finding out goes along. All of this graft, greed, and corruption is all tied together. And I'm going to say, like I said last month, and that is the world's bifurcating into two groups. Those that follow net zero and fiscal decline and depravity, and those that actually follow solid energy policies are going to be in new trading blocks. And you're going to have depravity and not following fiscal responsibility and failure, or you're going to be successful in a new trading block.
Okay. I thought there was a conversation.
They don't even have to organize themselves in blocks.
Do what? You cut out. What did you say, Irina?
Who?
What did you say,
I said
Irina?
they don't even need to organize. I said that they don't even need to organize themselves into blocks. They can just trade with each other.
Yes, but people love to organize stuff in terms of how you think about things. So it's like, well, this group over here is trading with each other and so on. And so we're going to say it's this group and the other one. But I think it was Doomberg or somebody was trying to say that there's actually three. There's the bifurcation of the BRICS and what the net zero people were doing. But now America is creating a third one of energy reality where they're in charge, but it's not like the BRICS guys who were doing their own thing. So I don't know. Interesting.
When you have Venezuela now, the money has already been set up the executive order that President Trump set up for Venezuela's oil to be sold by the United States, is the United States now a de facto member of OPEC? When you actually have a laughing kind of a humorous situation going on right now, China was buying the oil at about $30 a barrel. When you buy the Venezuelan oil for about $30, the snowball effect is going to happen when President Trump said to China, we're open for business. You can now buy oil from the United States. The actual winner of this is OPEC, because OPEC, Saudi Arabia, needs oil at that $80 mark just to meet their budget needs. So you're going to see eventually, in maybe a year or two, higher oil prices are going to be going up. But that has nothing to do with today's conversation, except it's going to be a new world coming around the corner.
Back to Tom, on the IPCC, when we talked about Roger Pelkey's view that it's a mistake. And before we got on, we were also talking about, Mike Waltz, our ambassador to the UN, saying, it's really not feasible for the United States to get out of the UN entirely because it's important to have that seat on the Security Commission there. So on the IPCC, do you have a concern? They're going to keep issuing these reports with or without U.S. participation and funding. And those reports have been a key driver of all this climate hysteria, and not necessarily even because what the reports actually say, but how they're interpreted by the media. Do you have a concern from your point of view on, with the U.S. getting out, not having a voice now in how those things read? Has the United States been a moderating factor in how the IPCC reports read each year?
Yeah, I think there was it. I think it doesn't matter. Yeah, I think there was a time when we had actual people with integrity, like Richard Lindzen, I think, way back in the day, that he was a voice, I think, in the IPCC. Yeah,
that's exactly who I was thinking of.
Yeah, in the good old days. But anyway, I think it doesn't matter. I think let's let all the other countries that want to be in on this scam still issue any reports they want, and I think we will just ignore them correctly. People who are rational should just completely ignore them. I don't think we should have people on the board trying to make them put out a climate realist IPCC report. I think it's fine. I think it's totally fine. And the point I wanted to mention is, again, that people are just going to stop talking about it. There was, I think people in the future, they will not say, oh, we were wrong about this whole thing. I'm sorry we demonized you. I'm sorry we demonized Trump for not believing in this, that you guys were right all along. They're just going to stop talking about it. And if it comes up, they're going to say, I never really believed in it anyway. We're absolutely going to see that, because it's going to be embarrassing in the future to admit that you thought that CO2 might kill us all. It's going to be looked at as just total hysteria by almost everyone in the future.
I agree. That's a really great point. I want to just share this little bit from Roger Pelkey Jr., where he said, the IPCC has overall done a very good job in its working group 1, playing things straight on the detection and attribution of trends in extreme weather. Oh, okay. But the overall statement for policymakers never says that. And then he goes on to say, at the same time, its working group 2 is captured by climate advocates. And throughout, the assessment relies heavily on implausible, outdated scenarios. So even though America has been participating in this, it has not been able to stop the climate extremists from dominating these reports. And I take your point, Tom. I think this is really great. If they could have an alternative, they could have an alternative report, sort of like what the DOE did earlier, late last year, where they have real scientists who care about truth and trying to find maybe not just truth, but trying to use the scientific method as it was supposed to be used, not for political purposes or whatever, but to try and understand what the phenomena is, what are the inputs, and what that all means. And maybe with a more realistic assessment to counter the IPCC, this would bring what you say down the road, that maybe CO2 isn't the big problem and methane's not the big problem that everybody says it is, at least in those groups.
So I do have a lot of criticisms of Pilkey Jr., tons of specific criticisms. Not long ago, he said we need net zero ASAP. He said that.
Yeah.
That's completely crazy. And he was on my podcast a while back and he said that climate skeptics have lost the debate. He said that, which is absolutely not true. And he was also saying something about how he can't wait to tell his grandchildren about how he was a voice in getting rid of the incandescent bulb. That he's so happy that he thinks he was influential for some sort of bad weather preventing purpose. That's why we've got these bulbs that don't work as well and might be more dangerous for our health. So I have tons of bones to pick with him. It's really weird that he also is saying this stuff about trends in extreme weather. He's admitting that there aren't trends in extreme weather and CO2 is not causing bad weather. So it's very odd that he's all in on this net zero thing being a good idea and CO2 doesn't cause bad weather. It's really a puzzle.
It is definitely a puzzle, and you have to wonder what's motivating it.
Yeah, I do.
Irina, do you have any questions you want to ask Tom? I throw it open to the other group members.
No, I just like listening to him. No, I actually have a question for all of you. However, Trump is doing all this now, and his administration. What happens after the next elections if the Democrats win? If
always the problem, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a facet of the U.S. system of elections. You know, everything can change with one election, and that isn't going to change. So we'll have to just wait and see and work hard to make sure we don't elect another barely functional or non-functional fake president who is a sock puppet for the deep state.
I do think it's important to note that even the Democrats are backing away from this. There was some memo, something that just came out saying that basically this is so politically unpopular that we should stop talking about it because we're going to lose votes. So it's kind of across the board. I don't think it will come back. I mean, we're going to get more Democrats as president, but I don't think it's ever going to reach the heights that it reached recently. But we'll see. And maybe there will be another global cooling scare. I mean, we've had alternating scares for a long time. And actually in the media, I'm seeing a lot of stuff about, maybe CO2 is going to cause global cooling and it's going to get too cold in Europe to grow crops. I'm seeing a lot of that lately. And I think
they're clearly message testing that, right?
It's a greenhouse gas. How are they going
to? It's going to.
What?
The oceans are going to boil and it's going to get way too cold in Europe at the same time. Both of those. Yeah. It's
well,
so
it
crazy.
is very cold in Europe right now. It hasn't been this cold in years.
Yeah. We're supposed to think that cold. I've heard people argue we've defeated ice ages forever. We're never going to have another ice age. We never have to worry about global cooling, but we do. I mean, it's happened so many thousands of times. It's going to happen again. And we better be ready for it.
And actually kind of geologically, aren't we kind of getting close to a due date for that to happen again?
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, because we're in this interglacial period right now. Interglacial means between ice ages.
Yeah.
Stu,
what do you think?
Do what?
What do you think about Tammy's question?
I'm just absorbing this morning. I really think that the world is again going to wake up and people are tired of this. And it's much like we're seeing in Iran. You're going to see the masses start waking up and demanding that we stop having illegal migrations, and people are going to start. It is all tied to climate change funding. You eliminate the climate change and the graft and the greed, it's a mechanism. And Tom, it is climate change nothing more than a wealth transfer mechanism?
Yeah, I mean, this whole narrative, the whole thing is scientifically unsound. It's 100% scientifically unsound. And every single alarming thing you've ever heard about CO2, all of it is wrong. So people do have different motivations. And there are some people, like I think Catherine Hayhoe, I think she actually believes when she gets up in the morning, she's helping to save human civilization from CO2. So there are some true believers. And there's a lot of outright fraudsters mixed together. And it's, people have incentives to, if you're Elon Musk and you want to sell electric cars, you might want to say a bunch of stuff about how we're saving humanity from the climate crisis. So there's a lot of motivations pointing towards this crazy hysteria, or that led to this ridiculous hysteria. But it can't last forever, and it's not.
Here's a great one.
Yeah.
From Eric Rick Slayer 7557 says, I believe that Jesus will come back in the next 7 to 10 years, so we won't have to worry about any climate change. Now, I like that one.
Yeah, here's the next one. And you take a look at this one. Wait, you believe CO2 doesn't cause a problem? Last time I checked, CO2 is plant food. It's the particulate matter that is in there in the plants that put out, I mean, not the plants, but the power plants that put out particulate matter that is some of the health problems. So CO2 is actually plant food. There are other things in there that are actually the problem. So if you want my honest opinion.
Carbon-based life forms, dear commenter.
Yeah. It's not, and saying it's plant food, and I do it too, is really understating it. Carbon dioxide is the fundamental key building block for all life on planet Earth. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what carbon dioxide is. And we shouldn't ever lose sight of that.
Yeah.
Calling it a pollutant is absolutely absurd.
Absolutely not a pollutant. They love to call it carbon pollution because they want us to think of black smoke. They don't want us to know it's invisible, it's natural, it's colorless, and we're exhaling 100 times as much right now as we talk versus what's in the outside air. And when people want their crops to grow better in a greenhouse, they raise the CO2. They pay good money to raise that number to a factor of 3 more than is normally there. And I think Will Happer has argued that maybe 20% of the increase in global CO2 yield, global wheat yields, is because of the additional CO2. There's lots of reasons why crop yields are going up, but having that additional CO2 is a big factor in crops growing better around the world. And if CO2 does heat the world a little bit, that is also a benefit, because always, of course, in human history, the cold periods have been bad periods. The little ice age not that long ago was a bad time to be alive. So we should enjoy this interglacial while it's around, because this warmth has been great so far.
Let me ask this for a question. If pot growers and marijuana growers actually pump CO2 into a farm, and they bring in CO2 into the heating houses, should physics matter to the grid? Is this a little bit of a thing? Just asking. I mean, it would make sense if all the pot farmers of America united. It might make a little difference, right?
Exactly. I mean, come on, potheads, get with the program here.
I'd like to address what Mike Antonio 4693 has been saying, because he says CO2 traps heat in the atmosphere and too much is a bad thing. How much is too much?
Yeah, how much is too much?
Because if you look at, say, for example, if you look at what the allowable amounts are on the International Space Station, it's in the thousands before it becomes toxic to humanity. So how much? They've never said precisely how much is a bad thing. There's also a saturation effect. And Professor Happer and Weingarten have talked tremendously and very eloquently about the saturation effect within our atmosphere. That, if you have the insulation and you have this amount of trapping and you double it, that doesn't mean you're doubling how much warmer things are. It doesn't work like that. So, okay, so how much is a bad thing? How too much is a bad thing? How much? And this is something that gets left out of the conversation. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, of course, this idea that 430 parts per million, let's say, it's too much, is just ridiculous. We're way, way closer to not having enough CO2 in the atmosphere. Once it gets below 280 or below 200, life has a really hard time. So we're very close to not having enough. And Patrick Moore even argues that maybe we've saved life on Earth because that trend was going down for a long time. And if humans have reversed that trend, I don't know if they have, but if they have, it's a good thing, because life did great on Earth when there was way more CO2. Life did fantastic. The plants were huge. The animals, the dinosaurs were huge. There's nothing wrong with having way more CO2. And again, in greenhouses, they want 3 times as much CO2 in the greenhouses as we have. So the whole idea that, oh, let's worry about 430, it's complete insanity. 100% insane.
Well, and the proof point on that, isn't it, that when you look at the history of the planet through geologic history, has there ever been a single period of time in the history of this planet in which carbon dioxide was a leading indicator of global warming and not a trailing indicator? I don't believe there's ever been a single example of that. And yet we're all supposed to believe that suddenly things are different now. Am I wrong about that?
As far as I know, for all of geological time, CO2 has never been the climate control knob. And now we're saying, people are saying now it is. And they'll even admit, oh, the temperature fluctuated even in the last couple hundred years, but that was for other reasons. But now CO2 is the reason. But it makes no sense at all, because if CO2 didn't fluctuate back then and the temperature did, then CO2 is not the climate control knob. I think that's an important thing to hammer when you're talking to a climate cultist, that CO2 is not the climate control knob.
Not that it does any good, but yes, that's a good point.
It does good with normal people, though. There's a certain subset.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Irina.
Well, you call them cultists. You can't convince a cultist that facts are facts. I was wondering, I have been wondering for a while now, that the net zero crowd, the activists, tend to really ignore the effect of solar activity on the climate of our planet. I would speculate that one reason is that it's so much simpler and so much more effective for their purposes to blame human activity. But it's really, really remarkable to what extent they ignore it. They even, I think someone published some study that said solar activity had a negligible effect on the Earth's climate. Tom, what do you think about that?
No, generally the cultists and the scammers, and I shout out Mike, that they don't want to hear about anything natural. And of course you can't, if sun is controlling climate, there's no way to control the rest of us and tax us and seize power and all that stuff. So the late, great Tim Ball said that the effect of CO2 on climate is, you can liken it to the tightness of one of the lug bolts on one of the tires of a car. It's a little tiny thing. It's not driving the car. It is a factor, but there's hundreds or thousands of factors. And the whole idea that we think that we can change our lifestyle and stop eating cheeseburgers and all these other things to prevent bad weather is crazy. And I do want to bring up at this point, this C40 cities document. I love that it was recently still up online, and a lot of mayors of major cities signed this crazy thing that said, you know, to prevent bad weather, we need to limit each person to only 3 pieces of clothing, 3 new pieces of clothing per year. It's in writing. That's what they want to do to prevent bad weather. 3 pieces of clothing. And they say happily that no dairy, no meat, because that's going to prevent bad weather, and we can't fly. It is so completely crazy. It's amazing that as of recently, it was still online and mayors had signed this crazy document. That it's just amazing how far off the rails things really got. It's funny in a way and it's sad in a way.
Christina Figueres, who was one of the negotiators for the Paris Agreement for the UN, gave a talk to the UK back in, I think it was 2020 before COVID, where she was going on about how we have too much stuff. Do we really need to have more than 3 sweaters? Do we really need to have more than 2 jackets or 1 jacket? Do we really need more than 2 pairs of shoes? And I'm like, yeah, you grew up in Costa Rica where the temperature is pretty temperate, but I'm sorry, you grew up in Canada or in the northern Europe. 2 sweaters? Are you joking me? Like 2 pairs
How
of
many
shoes?
sweaters
Like,
does she have?
right. I
How many
mean,
pairs of
it's just
Christian
How many
Louboutins
sweaters
does
does
she have?
she have? And how many pairs of shoes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we hear from a lot of elites that the CO2 problem, the alleged problem, is so bad that we have to change our lifestyles. And there was this Al Gore advice in his book, I believe, saying that to prevent bad weather, we should line dry our clothes.
Yeah.
So when do you think is the last time that Al line dried his own clothes? And also, we're supposed to, when we want to do long haul travel, we're supposed to do that by bus. And again, when's the last time that Al took a bus trip across the country? It's amazing that he thinks that we're just going to do this stuff that he would never do in a million years. And of course, it's not just Al, it's almost everybody. Almost nobody, even the cultists and the scammers, almost none of them are living as if they actually believe it. They're not living it. Yeah. They're enjoying all the benefits of hydrocarbon fuels, almost all of them, and without a care in the world. But they want to clamp down on our lifestyles, and they think we're going to knuckle under. But we're not. Absolutely, we're never going to knuckle under.
Tom, do you think that we've seen the last COP? Because you've got Ed Miliband making 2 trips, not 1 trip to Brazil, but he made 2 trips on the same meeting. I mean, he had to go, he left his car running in the parking lot and had to go back, and then he had to go back. The elitist flying in and out to Brazil, and they then destroyed, I believe, 100 miles of the rainforest or whatever the number was. It absolutely eviscerated it and ruined it. The funding is going to go away. So this funding project that President Trump is pulling out could impact a significant chunk of things. Do you think this is the last COP?
I would be surprised and super happy if it was, but I think they're going to still do it, but we'll find out. You know more than I do about cutting off the funding and making it go away. I would love it. I think it should. I think they should never have had any COPs, but it would be great if the funding cuts cause it to go away. I would love it. I would celebrate.
I think they would just create something else.
Wasteful annual climate conferences, the WEF is going to convene in 1 week from today, the 19th of January. Everybody mark your calendars. President Trump will be speaking at
I'm looking forward to that one. I believe that it is going to be more than President Trump speaking. I believe it's going to be another notice to a global financial reset that Trump is not playing in the Davos game. And I think it's going to be absolutely wonderful.
So you don't think he's going to go to Davos and apologize and take it all back for pulling us out of these 66 international organizations?
I think he's actually going to tell Davos, I will accept your terms of surrender.
That'll be interesting. I don't know. I'm concerned that there's such a big contingent going.
You guys know better. I'm sorry, you guys know better than I do, but didn't Trump go to the UN and in front of the UN just say all this climate realist stuff just right to their faces? And did they cut off his teleprompter and he said it all off the cuff? Am I right there? I think he did.
Exactly.
Whatever he did,
just
I
5 months
it.
ago.
That was fantastic. That was so great.
I wanted to just point out here what Marco Rubio said in his statement when they withdrew from these organizations. And he said, these organizations actively seek to constrain American sovereignty. Their work is advanced by the same elite networks, the multilateral NGO-plex, that we have begun dismantling through the closure of USAID. And I think this speaks of a broader picture here of these sort of hazy, opaque, dark money networks that have funded all different kinds of things to destabilize the United States. And I think the climate ones have really, I mean, there's so much money that goes from philanthropy, so-called philanthropies and foundations to climate work that destabilizes not just the United States, but the entire Western civilization idea, that one should ask, why? Why does this money go to do that? Tom, what's your view on Marco Rubio's statement?
Yeah, it just made me think of other statements that people in the administration have made. They're using words like religion and cult and scam. They're using these words a lot, which makes me very, very happy. It makes me think about how far we've come since, I think it was about 2008 when Newt Gingrich sat down with Pelosi. I think it was on a couch, sat down with somebody. Maybe it wasn't Pelosi, but he was basically saying, let's get together, both parties, and fight carbon dioxide. Completely crazy, but the worm has absolutely turned, and I'm loving the straight talk we're hearing about using these words like cult instead of just you guys are right, but we're approaching it in the wrong way. We've heard there really is a crisis, but let's not spend too much money on it. They're just straight up saying let's not basically spend any money on it. It's not a problem. It's a religion, and let's get out of that whole business of trying to prevent bad weather.
There are two things that I'm going to answer a couple things here. I think this one is actually pretty funny. When you sit back and think about Herr Starmer, the memes about the people begging Trump to come get their leaders is actually pretty funny. I've seen some of those. Love the memes on Marco Rubio as he's sitting in all these different outfits. And the report that came out on the U.S. jobs, that 1,000 jobs were created last week, but Rubio has 989 of those jobs. This one is a very interesting point. Let me guess, you guys believe in clean coal. Yes, Mike, I believe in clean coal because I wrote on a lot that the more we spend in renewable wind and energy, the more fossil fuels we would have. In fact, one of my guests on my podcast called that Turley's Law. So, Mike, if you want more wind and solar, go ahead. Fund it, and more fossil fuels will be used. And it is worked out very well. It is a very good formula.
Can I be clear on one thing? I actually believe in beautiful clean coal. Thank you.
Well, I feel bad for Irina because didn't Bulgaria have coal power, but they also had Soviet nuclear or old Russian nuclear that the EU is now saying you can't have?
Yeah, sorry, my internet connection has become really sketchy. It's really annoying, but actually because they were trying, because of the sanctions and our brave leaders' desire to shut any contact with Russia whatsoever, they tried to switch the fuel of Kozloduy, our only operating nuclear power plant, from Russian to Westinghouse to American. It didn't work. And in fact, just before the holiday maintenance, there was a problem with some component from Westinghouse. I mean, if it's built or country, in this case, it is calibrated to work with its equipment. You can't just switch equipment in a nuclear power plant. Have Westinghouse build the second nuclear power plant. It will work perfectly with Westinghouse equipment. Just do what the European Union wants to do and have us export nuclear power to Ukraine or anyone else.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's, it's purely technical. If it's not working, it's not working, and you can't force it to work with it. I'm sure it'll be the other way around would be the same, trying to put Russian nuclear fuel into a Westinghouse reactor. It will be the same because that's how they're made. I understand. But yeah.
So I absolutely believe in clean coal and hydrocarbon fuel because it works. It works to power our hospitals, factories, schools, whatever. And this whole idea, the cultists want us to run those things on wind or solar. But I don't know of any case anywhere where one modern factory, for example, is run purely by wind or solar power because it's intermittent. As someone said, how much would you pay for a car that works only an unpredictable 1/3 of the time? That's what you're getting with its intermittent power. you're getting something that works only part of the time. So coal works, it stays up, it powers our society. And I wanted to mention also that coal is just a villain. It's not that it causes warm weather, but they were happily blaming coal also during the global cooling in the 1970s. They're saying they'll happily blame it for anything. But yeah, there's no such thing as coal-induced bad weather. And coal works, nuclear works. I'm not in favor of any one thing necessarily, but whatever power actually works, that's what we should use.
Well, if I want to address what Mike said, a couple of things. So first of all, with the dinosaurs and oxygen and the increase in oxygen, that was because there was more vegetation. And the photosynthesis from all that vegetation put more oxygen into the air. But why was there all that vegetation? Because there was higher CO2 levels and probably a lot of methane that broke down into the atmosphere to create water and oxygen. So and CO2. So it's like, you try to make an argument about science and then these other things get thrown out. And then when you explain, it just gets dismissed and off to some other thing. Right. And with respect to coal, yes, like Stu had said before, there is the issue of particulate matter. David, you said that as well. But you know what? There's technologies to clean that, to remove the particulates before it gets out through the smokestacks or whatever, so that the emissions level, if that's what you really care about, is similar, if not the same, as a natural gas power plant. And most of the new Chinese coal plants that there's, I think, 2 opened every week or something, they all these new ones deploy that technology in order to diminish the amount of particulate matter, which then can create the dark bits on the snow and stuff like that, which can be bad for the environment and bad for human health. And so there's technologies in place to diminish that. That's actually through science. Science has allowed these technological innovations and whatnot. And, to be honest, last point, if CO2 and emissions were the really big problem, then why the heck do most of the environmental organizations and groups and lobbyists and advocates not want nuclear?
Gee, right? You might almost think it's a money thing if you didn't know better.
Or something else. Maybe it's related to all of the different things about changing the way we live that Tom had pointed out, that the C4 cities encourage, and all these other groups. So I don't know, there's other issues there.
I do want to throw in one more thing about just how crazy the fight against carbon dioxide got. This is one of my favorite examples. I blogged about this a long time ago, and I'm going to read it. At the height of the CO2 hysteria in 2007, a peer-reviewed paper suggested that we spend $250 billion annually to hire and equip 200,000 crews of 10 people each to cut down trees and bury them. That was a serious thing, that we should cut down trees and bury them. And that's been revived since then. There's been papers written that this is what we should do to prevent bad weather and fight CO2. We should cut down trees and bury them. That's how crazy it got.
Oh, it's insane. It's a religious thing. And this is what gets me about this particular statement, Mike, and I'm trying to be kind. I tried, and you can't talk to science denying cultists. My retort to that always is, I tried, but you can't talk to religious cultists who treat carbon dioxide as a religious exercise. This is not a religion, and yet that's how y'all treat it. It's the global church of climate alarmism. I've actually trademarked that, okay? That's my trademark. I made it up 30 years ago, the first time I ever wrote about this, and called it a religious exercise. 29 years ago, in 1996, I looked it up. It's nothing but a religious exercise, and it's also, well, it's not nothing but that. It's also the incarnation of communism, global communism in modern times. That's what this all is. All the pinks and reds went green in the early 1990s after the fall of the Soviet Union, and it's continued to today, and it's falling apart just like the Soviet Union did of its own weight. Now, that's my diatribe for the day. I tried not to be too mean about it, but there it is.
Well, actually, in some parts of the world, for example, in Germany, it started way, way, way before the fall of the Soviet Union. I mean, the anti-nuclear movement started with the building of all the nuclear power plants. They even
Right.
had propagandistic children's books about how bad nuclear energy is.
Yeah, and that was all a product of the Cold War, you know.
Yeah. And accidents. There's too many accidents. Really? Really?
Too many.
Three big ones in how many years? 60 years.
Yeah.
How many trillions of dollars have been spent on wind and solar?
I mean, a reader of my Substack crunched the numbers with the help of Grok, but I can't remember.
So let's just say it's a couple $1 trillion between friends.
Oh, it's more than that. It's much more than that. It's well over $10 trillion.
How many?
Well over 10 trillion. I asked Grok to try to calculate it for me a few months ago, and they came up with like 13 trillion.
So have I, and so I'm asking a loaded question. And so when you say how many trillions of dollars have been spent, how many trillions of dollars have been funneled to NGOs that have been migrating people around or paying for all of these things, you can start seeing money patterns tied to wind and solar. And this person is in here asking about whether or not we are science deniers. When you take a look at the grid was started about 100 years ago. You take a look at Westinghouse and you look at Tesla. Tesla started, the war between AC and DC. Physics matter to the grid. And where I'm going with this is I still think that follow the money for climate science has gone through, and they've changed the narrative. Tom, how often has the climate narrative been changing? It's now climate change, or the polar bears are now going to be eating dandelions, or, if it doesn't work for a little while, they change it. How come the Obamas have bought land right next to the ocean if the ocean is supposed to be growing? I mean, and we're all going to be wiped out. So I think, yes, that is Nicholas Tesla, not Elon. So you are right. Thank you. The original Tesla. Thank you. And for the guy that was asking about Teslas, I believe Tesla is a fantastic product. I believe Tesla will be a company to invest in. And I think Tesla will be the survivor because it is a technology company. So you can sit there and Eric Clapton or whatever, you love your Tesla, buy a Tesla. I think if you want an EV, buy an EV. I think older people are going to love the auto drive feature, and it's going to keep me alive because every time I see a 99-year-old trying to drive, I'm praying they go buy a Tesla. Thank you for letting me rant.
Somebody asked,
No, go ahead.
Whether nuclear power plant radiation is good. No, it's not good, but it's controlled. Come on. This is just very silly. It's not an argument. They control it. It's not like everyone working in and around nuclear power plants mutates or dies at 35. Really, seriously. And no, Chernobyl is not safe to live there for humans, but wildlife has returned to the surrounding areas and it's thriving. There's actually a lot of fauna around Chernobyl, and Chernobyl is the biggest and the only one caused by human mistake devastating nuclear power plant meltdown. One. Do you know how many nuclear reactors are in operation right now around the world? I don't, but there must be
thousands and thousands. Yeah, I don't know the exact
thousands. And we're talking about Chernobyl.
Yeah, I think there's 820.
Oh, come on! There's got to be more than that. That's got to be traditional power plants.
So there will be.
I mean, there's hundreds of nuclear submarines in operation.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Fauna is back there and they're doing very well. Perfectly normal animals. You should check it out.
Well, and remember, we were all told that the half-life, if you have an accident like 3 Mile Island, after 3 Mile Island, the hysteria in the media was, oh my God, that area is going to be uninhabitable for thousands of years. Nobody even had to move. Okay. No one in the vicinity had to actually move away. It just all nonsense and hysteria. And yet the nuclear industry in the United States was set back for 40 years because of that. And all the hysteria, that's really what set back our industry and actually put it in paralysis for 4 decades. So all this disinformation about nuclear has just been incredibly counterproductive for our society.
So there's 73 nuclear power plants under construction right now, at least they were in 2025 through 2026, 37 of which are in China. So clearly China believes, they're doing lots of coal, they're doing lots of nuclear, natural gas, and they build out wind and solar in order to keep their production capacity to be able to flood the European and global markets with those technologies, which of course have other downsides besides taking up the space and impacting wildlife and everything else. So yeah, nuclear's there and people can complain and whatever else. But then there was this comment about the subsidies for fossil fuels, which came directly from Oil Change International, that lovely NGO, and that didn't find an oil and gas field it didn't hate. But it's one of these things where subsidies are discussed. When if it's a tax write-off, suddenly that's if it's in the tax code, that's a subsidy.
It's a tax treatment that literally every business across the free world gets. Right, that's a subsidy.
Yeah. But it's called a subsidy only for big oil. Even though it's like every company. So I don't know.
But
these arguments.
So I've seen subsidy calculations, lots of them, that called it a subsidy when they assumed that you emitted a bunch of CO2 and that killed a bunch of people. And there was a cost associated with the CO2 induced death. So they called that a subsidy. You didn't have to pay anything for all this, the people that died from your CO2. That was how they calculated a subsidy in that case. So that's not a subsidy. Yeah, that's insanity, not a subsidy.
Yes. Even the Obama administration was never able to come up with more than a $4 billion number. And that was all based on the assumption that the integrated oil companies benefited from percentage depletion, which they don't, and for the expensing of intangible drilling costs, which they don't. So the real number was more like $1.4 billion. And that is a drop in the bucket compared to what was passed under the IRA. And even those, even that 1.4 billion, what they called subsidies in there weren't really subsidies. They weren't direct money payments to those companies like the subsidies in the IRA.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
But, so this goes, if I could just tie this up now. So we have the complaints against subsidies for oil and gas or whatever, but was America not subsidizing all of these different international organizations and whatnot, but through participation and funding and all this kind of thing? So any last words about the US withdrawal from these global conventions, frameworks, institutions? We'll do a round robin. David, what are your final thoughts?
It's morning in America again.
Okay. Tom, what are your thoughts?
I'll just say that from my perspective, COVID woke people up. I think that was a huge thing that happened. And that's a major reason for the whole vibe shift and the reason that people are questioning the experts and questioning fraud. And there's so much questioning and digging and independent research. And I think COVID really kicked off a great thing. It was horrible in its way, but it was great that it made so many people think for themselves.
Well, that's a good point. Stu, what are your thoughts?
I think the world is going to heal in 2026. I think Tom's point is actually fantastic when you sit back and think about the people are going to find out how corrupt government is We have a uniparty in the United States of Republican rhinos and Democrats. And I think that the world is waking up to corruption. And I am tired of paying taxes to a corrupt government that is healing. I see things getting better. I see the war in Ukraine ending very soon. The whole oil dynamic is going to change. I think it is going to be actually a very good year for the world to heal. And I think climate awareness that Tom has been able to articulate has made an impact. And I think that people are going to change and realize, question everything.
Irina, last thoughts?
I can only agree with Tom and with Stu about people waking up. I'm starting to, to resent this word because it's being abused, but people are starting to think again, I think, because with the pandemic, with the lockdowns, we were forced to ask questions because the news and the science that was supposed to be settled changed all the time. If you remember the early weeks and months, and then towards the end of 2020, it was the complete opposite of what they were saying at the beginning of the year. And this is why I hate these science is settled and science denialists and all that. No, it's never settled. And in 5 years, as you said, Tom, a lot of people will be pretending they never supported the net zero push because they will be embarrassed by supporting it and being stupid. Yeah. And I would like to take a moment to thank all the commentators today for a very lively discussion.
Yes.
Keep it up, Tom. Did you bring the trolls with you, or they just smelled us out, sniffed us out?
I don't think I brought them, but I don't know what happened there. I'm happy they're here.
We don't normally get so many, but it was fun. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tom, for taking time out in your day to come chat with us about what the U.S. withdrawal from these institutions and frameworks and conventions. And thank you to everybody who participated in the conversation.
Can I add one last thing?
Yeah.
If you like this content and enjoyed it, go to YouTube and like and subscribe. It's free. It takes you 30 seconds. It helps our stats. Go do it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a great week.